These guys, they're petrol heads really. They love racing. I think some of them have come into racing a bit later than I came into it, but essentially it's exactly the same as how I started, where they followed motorsport through their lives, enjoyed it, watched it on TV, and now they're able to be part of it. And I think the fantastic thing about the racing community now, the GT world and the historic world, is that it's accessible to anybody. If you're able to afford buying into a car, then you can race at all kinds of different levels and be part of what's just a fantastic sport. And I think over the years that is the big element that's changed. It used to be quite an elitist sport that would be, I guess, people that you find aspirational kind of characters, and now it's very open. Particularly with sports car racing, that there's a lot of really enthusiastic amateur drivers that are doing a great job. They're called amateur drivers, but they're fantastic drivers that can hold their own against a lot of people. I grew up around motor racing as a young child. Literally, I think when I was a baby I was going to the Grand Prix. My father was a race official, and I remember going to watch the Cadet Grand Prix when Jenson Button and Dan Wheldon were racing. I was similar kind of age to myself, and just looking at them and thinking, I want to be out there doing that. I've got to stick a helmet on and get stuck in. So it took a while, but I actually saved and did lots of jobs and everything like that to get going for my first kart. And I started karting when I was 14, and it just grew from there really. So I loved it. The day I drove a kart, that was all I wanted to do. Once I went into GTs, I kind of really found my home, and it turned out to be a long career in GTs. It took me a long time to reach Le Mans 24-hour, and I've done Le Mans 3 times now. So for me, I think the culmination was I finished second at Le Mans in the Pro-Am class in 2017, and that was really the highlight of my racing career. And I think as much as anything, it was a dream that came true. For me, just to race at Le Mans was something I always aspired to. So to then stand on the podium at what I consider to be the greatest race in the world was a huge privilege and an honour. I mean, this really started some time ago when I was racing professionally in British GT. I came into a team and helped with the operations side of it, really part-time, helping somebody that was doing it as a hobby. We then ended up taking a couple more cars that were some Group C cars and some F1 cars, and things really grew from there, and that's how really Scott Sport started. Our core business at the moment it started as Historics. We're actually running a GT program as well now. We're taking care of a Le Mans Legends that they're classed as, so it's prototypes, GT cars that were racing at Le Mans probably as little as 10 or 15 years ago, so they're classed as Historics now. But at the end of the day, they're complicated bits of kit. I think through my racing career I've got a good experience and a good database of people that are good at looking after them, so I've brought everybody together here to try and manage those cars for those customers. The Williams is a former World Championship winning car in 1982 with Keke Rosberg. I mean, it was a great era of F1, really rock and roll lifestyle and rock and roll cars. Fantastic car to drive. Of course, the last of the Cosworth DFVs really, before the cars went to turbocharged cars and the engine started changing. So it's quite an easy car to manage really from that point of view. But just a phenomenal car and phenomenal to drive as well. So I mean, I think it's a real privilege to be around those kind of cars now they were the cars of motorsport in that era. So that was Chassis 1, and it won the 1982 Formula 1 World Championship. So, hugely significant car in the history of motorsport and of Williams, and of course with the Saudi livery was a very famous era for Williams when they were really at the top of their game. The most famous finish where it crossed the line with Elio De Angelis in the Austrian Grand Prix, really I think one of the closest finishes in F1 history, and that car's really famous for that. And then it's had a whole host of owners so it's been a really sort of a well-loved car by many different people over the years. Something like the Williams is around the £1 million mark. They're very, very valuable, and the interesting thing with historic racing is these are cars that were kind of cast-offs at one point and nobody wanted them, and of course over the years then there's now a racing championship where you can go and race them in at some of the most famous tracks. So the Williams is eligible for the Monaco historic meeting next year. So I think the people that buy them, they probably, as they were growing up, they might have been a poster car for them on their bedroom wall. They've been successful in their life and they're able now to own them, and I guess like a house really. You know, us as the preparer, the guys as the owners, you're just taking care of that car for a period of time before you pass it on to the next generation. From a management point on the car, we'll start with a bit of testing and then a qualifying session, and it goes into a race. The testing is really about making the driver feel comfortable, so we're just making sure from a setup point of view that they've got confidence in the car, that they're not finding any sort of adversaries with the car that are knocking their confidence and helping them get the best out of the cars. We'll also download data from the car, so we have a speed overlay and a throttle overlay. You can overlay the best lap of a driver. You can compare that with a professional driver. So we're just really trying to help the owners of the cars to get the best out of them and to understand what it takes to drive them and to try and perform at their best and to manage their expectation. From a team perspective, you're managing tyre pressures, engine temperatures, oil temperatures, and really taking care of the car in a way of trying to foresee any problems that could creep into the car that might cause a technical issue we're trying to manage before it becomes an issue. We've got a lot of data available to us. So on the cars you can see brake pressure, you can see how the throttle's being used, what gears we're in, some of the basic kind of stuff, and then you can get into that in terms of steering angle, all kinds of bits. I try to keep things quite simple, and I'll give the guys a few areas to work on where I see that they can gain some significant chunks of time so that they can get closer to the professional driver, whether it be myself or another driver that we might use, to be closer to their performance. So I'll just generally try and look at the basics and just try and help them, whether it be finding a bit of confidence in what they're doing, or just telling them, there you go, I'm braking twice as hard for that corner and 100 metres later. And then it's up to them to trust me and see if they can put that into action, which I think generally the guys can. I think it's the main thing really is try not to overcomplicate things for them. Yeah, so I think with the historic world, it's a very friendly, open environment. It's less focused so much on results as it is having a good weekend, and I think those guys, they're just enjoying being part of a great sport. I still get a lot of the enjoyment that I suppose I get out of racing. I get out of running the team. I enjoy seeing the cars do well. I enjoy trying to help the drivers that we've got driving for us and see the cars develop and ultimately trying to win races. Sometimes you're driving the car to really get that car a result. Other times you're driving the car because the driver doesn't want to do as much driving. I think it can be quite tiring, and for different people, they don't always want to do the whole race themselves. So sometimes I hang on to the steering wheel for a few laps and bring the car home. Other times you actually, you can really deliver a result. Sometimes I pinch myself for what I've ended up achieving as a driver, and even with what I'm doing now as a business. I was very, very set on wanting to be a racing driver. I'm really fortunate, I think, in having so many good experience in racing over the years, and I'm enjoying my experience now as a team owner. I think it's really down to the fact that it's people's passion for motorsport and what they've followed over the years, and that now through their success in life really, they've been able to buy into something that they followed, and perhaps at an era that they really wanted to do it, but they may have been far busier building their business and growing things and putting themselves in a position, I guess, where they're able to afford to do it. So I think that's the big attraction with historics. I think generally in life that there's so many people that look back over the years and say the good old days and all that kind of stuff. And I guess with historic racing that you're basically going back to the good old days, aren't you? So, and that's really a dream, I think, for a lot of people.
P2.